Hi, my name is Zach Eden, and this is my second presentation, How Communication in Families Has Changed. What we consider a family is changing, and so is how we communicate with them. Age to get married, the number of unmarried mothers, and one-person households have all gone up recently. With the rise of technology, it can be harder for us to communicate, even though not a lot of people see that. Everyone has something that they consider a family, and we must adapt how we communicate with them depending on how it's changing. And over the years, the dynamic and definition of a family has changed, along with how they communicate. And my family has gone through some changes as well, whether it was a build up or just one event, and I've had to adapt how I communicate with them based on how it was changing at the time. And so first I will talk about the traditional definition of a family and how they communicated. And second, I will talk about the impact that technology has had on communications in families. And third, I will talk about the modern definition of a family and how that compares to the traditional definition. Now, while the traditional definition is upheld by many, it excludes a lot of people, and it really needed to be changed. It used to be when you thought of a family, it was a mom, a dad, and two kids normally. And the definition can differ greatly depending on the different cultural, social, and political influences that are present where you live. And the traditional family is defined as a man and a woman with one or more of their biological or adopted children. Now, many people still hold this definition, but it isn't the accepted definition anymore. And communication in the traditional family isn't near as open as it is today, and they were encouraged to keep their feelings inside and hide them from others and not talk about them as much. But as the generations pass, communication has gotten more open in families. Now, while technology is helping open communications in some ways, there are negatives. Now, technology is normally considered good for everyone, but like I said, we don't usually see the downsides, like avoiding communication. Like I said, technology can make it easier, but the effects can go unnoticed. Like with social media, we're so used to social media now, it might be easier for us to talk to our friends, but we might not notice it as much. And this social media can create an independence from our parents that previously wasn't there, especially for middle school to high school age kids that previously, in previous generations, if you had to call your friend, you would call their house and you had to call the landline, and their parents would be able to mediate the interaction a little bit more. Now, let's say another gap would be the technological proficiency between the parents and the children. The children would normally be much more technologically proficient, and it'd be harder for them to communicate with their parents that aren't quite as technologically proficient. While this being said, technology used at school is shown to help communications in families, while technology used for social reasons like social media and video games is shown to harm the communication in the family. While tech has some downsides, it has helped us move from the traditional definition of a family to the more modern definition of a family. And it has changed immensely over the last 60 years, and is always adapting to the new political or social constructs. But now a family is defined as a group of people who create and maintain emotional bonds and communicational boundaries. Now, many groups like gay couples and single mothers found themselves being defined as a family. And this may not be a big deal to some people, but a lot of people felt they were families and wanted to be defined as a family, and now they've gotten that chance. And now communication is pushed to be more open when compared to the traditional families. They're more encouraged more to share their feelings. It isn't considered weak like it used to be. And while tech can make it harder in some areas, if it's used right, it can make communication much easier. And this being said, these are generalizations about families in each generation. There were more liberal parents back in the day. There are more traditional parents nowadays, but there's generalizations about how the overall trend has been. So first, I talked about the traditional definition of a family and explained how they communicate with each other. And second, I showed how technology has affected how families communicate. And third, I showed the modern definition of a family and compared that to the traditional definition of a family. Over the years, the dynamic and definition of a family has changed along with how people communicate with their families. While everyone has a different idea of what family means to them, I hope you learn something about how families communicate and can apply it to yourself. Thank you.